This is the Paladin build I used to speedrun T12 in less than 24 hours. It is incredibly fast, being able to run up to 300% movement speed, disgustingly tanky with infinite healing, and it's very fun to play. Zeal Paladin has received many buffs this season and is finally a very strong build. About the main mechanics of the build before we get on with the rest. The most important thing to understand is why it's so damn tanky, which has many benefits beyond survivability that we'll talk about in a bit. Zealot Oath makes our Zealot skills fortifies for 1% of our maximum health per hit, which basically means infinite fortify since we hit so often with Fortify then heals us for 15% of our maximum health per second. By using the Embattled aspect, we can turn that 50% to 45% or more. But actually, Embattled aspect is bugged. And it's making it heal much more than that. When testing, I found that I was healing at least 200% per second. It could be more, I don't really know. I don't have a way to test beyond 200%. But what I do know is that if you don't get one shot, you basically are just never dying. Battle aspect lets us out heal the use of Zeal, which costs 10% of our maximum health per use with the Death or Glory upgrade, which we get for free by using the Red Sermon unit. All this healing, we are basically getting 60% damage and 20% crit chance for free. And also, because we use Red Sermon, which grants us the upgrade, we get to use another upgrade on Zeal, giving it more damage. The Embattled Tech also enables us to use Rally with Ward of Sacrifice, which turns our Rally into a skill that costs maximum life, 35%, and lets it stack the buff it grants up to 3. Rally grants 5% crit and 20% movement speed per stack, so that's 15% crit and 60% movement speed. That exceeds the 200% movement speed cap. Exceeds, that's very important. And usually, spamming an ability that consumes 30% of our life per cast would be impossible. Just about any build, but Zealot Oath with Embattled Aspect Tech allows us to do. Next, it's important to understand where a lot of our damage comes from, as it has important implications to the rest of the build. First is Redirected Force, grants 180% damage on our amulet, and our block chance is capped. You may wonder, Sanctum, how are you blocking if you're using Red Sermon, a two-hander? Well, you can still block with the two-hander, you just block for less because you don't have a shield boosting block damage reduction. Next question is probably, okay, but how are you getting 100% block chance? Well, that's where Interdiction aspect comes, giving us 3% block chance per resolve stack. We get 9% from our Paragon board, meaning with 31 stacks, we're capped. Resolve stacks also benefit us in other ways. Fortress grants us 4% damage per resolve stack, and Glint's Anvil grants us 40% damage reduction once we have around 13 stacks or more. That being said, when your Interdiction aspect is not maxed, which it won't be for a while, we'll fail to get 100% block chance, or even close to it. That reason, initially we'll have to run Aegis, which gives us blocked instead of Condemn, which applies Vulnerable and also grants us 30% movement speed that also exceeds the movement speed cap like Rally. Because Condemn is our only way to apply Vulnerable, we'll have to also use a Cursed Touch while using Aegis. While our Interdiction aspect is, I would say once you get it to at least 2.7, 2.8, then you can drop Aegis. Another thing I get asked about a lot is, why am I not using the Shield Bearer Paragon node despite having 100% block? And the reason for that is that Interdiction is bugged with it, and Shield Bearer just does not take account the block that it gives. So even though we're 100% blocked, Shield Bearer thinks we're at, let's say, 9% without Aegis, and it just does nothing. And the last important thing to get out of the way is Lucion Crown. S14 has brought the Destruction of Perdition, which is sad, but it was used in every build for so long, and it makes sense that it got nerfed. And the Perdition used to give us core ranks, a lot of crit chance, and 80% damage. Most builds now basically just don't really have a helmet and have to run a mediocre defensive aspect. But this build can run Lucion Crown. Lucion Crown gives us 58.5% damage when mythic, but makes our resource cost 180% more. Because Zeal and Rally cost health and not faith, we don't really need faith generation for our core gameplay. So that begs the question, how do we use a skill that costs faith every 6 seconds? How do we use a skill that costs faith every 6 seconds or less? And the answer is Auras. Fanaticism and Defiance do cost faith, and we don't actually need that much faith generation to sustain the increased cost, because first of all, Rally grants us faith and we spam it, or we get it for free from the Talisman, which I'll cover later. But also, even without the Rally, we will be able to sustain it with 2 faith per second rolls on our gear, but we only need 1. Now, getting the cooldown down to 6 on, let's say, Fanaticism to keep up Lucion Crown is not that easy, but it's also not that hard since you can temper cooldown reduction on your rings. And because we don't use perdition now and we use a normal helmet can get cooldown reduction, which also helps. One thing to note is that there's a bug involved here where it seems like pressing your auras, I'm not sure what the bug is, but it's either your auras have a delay sometimes and you press them and they just don't go off, or there's a delay in the registering of the aura cast and the Lucion Crown understanding that you spent faith with it, which makes your buff drop. So I'm not sure what it is, but there's two ways you can solve that. If you either spam both of your auras off cooldown, you'll have a very high uptime on Lucion Crown, just not 100%. So ideally, when I first thought of the Lucian Crown tech, I thought, okay, just get my fanaticism under 6, spam it, and we're good. But because of the bug, that's not it. Again, if you use both skills just off cooldown, you just spam them. Lucian Crown uptime will be high, 6 stacks, but not 100%. If you instead purposely stagger the usage, that you're never pressing them close to each other, let's say you press fanaticism, you wait like 3 seconds, you press defiance, and so on, you will have 100% uptime. It will just be quite a bit more annoying. Another use for all the resolve we're using to get our block chance up is Fortress. Fortress grants us 4% damage per resolve stack, meaning we're getting around 120% damage out of it. Quite a lot. In order to keep it up, we have to get a lot of cooldown reduction, which we are already doing for Lucian Crown, which is great. Then we add in the Resplendence Glyph, which lowers all our non-aura cooldowns by 2 seconds when we cast an aura skill. Then that's enough to keep it up. Fortress has 2 variants that we use. Barricade, which lets us recast Fortress to move it, and Rampant of Thorns. General gameplay, we use Barricade, but our uptime will not be 100% as the cooldown does not start until the entire skill ends. Bossing or pushing, we use Rampant of Thorns. Now, we don't care about the Thorns are slow, that's just shit. Gibbs, but we do care that the cooldown starts immediately when you cast it, so we can start lowering it. Well, at least it should if it wasn't for a bug that makes the cooldown of Fortress only start around 2 to 3 seconds after you press it. But even with that bug, we can get uptime to 100% if we just try to press our auras while it's actually on cooldown. Although, honestly, it doesn't matter too much once our cooldown is high enough, and the uptime ends up being 100% anyways, even if you just spam your cooldowns, your auras every time they're off cooldown. Another thing to keep in mind, though, is that when you reset your Fortress cooldown, if it's too fast, and while you still have another Fortress going, if you cast Fortress, you will not drop another Fortress, it will not refresh, you will simply cast one, the skill will go on cooldown, and nothing will happen. And then you won't have a Fortress for the next, let's say, 10 seconds. Now, it's annoying, but if you pay a little attention, it's mostly fine. Now, for required items to play the build, honestly, there are none. I guess I would say Embattled Aspect, which I have as a transfiguration, but usually you would have it as an aspect. It's almost mandatory. It's just so insane that I would almost call it mandatory, but you can start playing the build without it. And then there's Red Sermon, which it's pretty good. Like, it's not bad at all. Usually has seal ranks. Now, the seal ranks, if they're not maxed or GA, it's not very worth keeping. So I ended up re-rolling on this item. But the Red Sermon is good, but it's not mandatory at all. You can just put the Death for Glory variant yourself, right? This just gives you, let's say, 20% more damage. So it's really not that mandatory. In fact, I'm not even sure it is BIS to use Red Sermon. I have to figure it out, but it is a good item. And you get this from Butcher. The rest of the items we use is, well, I'm using Lucion Crown now as my CR is high enough. Use Heavenly Strength for the 40% DR. I'm using Crushing. Utmost Glory is a little better, but my Utmost Glory isn't high enough to justify it. It's only 33%, so technically it's 1% higher, but in a certain variant of the build I was playing, I don't weaken all the time, so this wouldn't be active 100% of the time, so it would make this better. But eventually you do swap to Utmost Glory once it's maxed. Then you use Blint's Amble, which is another huge benefit of going resolve stacks. You get 40% DR. And this aspect is a lot better now that, well, it's not a lot better. It actually got nerfed from around, well, infinite stacking. And before maximum resolve stacks on your gear, the temper was also bugged. And it could go up to 12. So you could stack this like shit, get 95% DR, be immortal. To be fair, I don't know if it even matters. This build is already, for most intents and purposes, immortal anyways. Yeah, this is 40% DR, which would matter less if they didn't nerf this aspect, which is, let me find it real quick, Indomitable. Indomitable used to be gain damage reduction equal to your block chance, right? Up to 45%. sorry, gain damage reduction equal to 45% of your block chance. But now it's not. It's armor and it's quite shit, which means claim Bumble is pretty mandatory, you know. And then we're using interdiction here, right? Remember, I did mention the Aegis thing. When you have to use Aegis, you also, in my opinion, don't use Lucion Crown, because by having to add a curse touch, right, we have to drop something, and we can't drop interdiction. We can't really drop Glint's Amble, it's too much DR. We really can't drop Heavenly Strength, it's too much DR. So something has to give, and it's Lucian Crown. So a curse touch goes here, right? And then for the rest of the aspects, we use Penitent's circle. The Penitent, which gives crit chance and crit damage. This build basically caps crit chance for free, because we're getting crit chance out of here. Actually, you don't even, it depends what variant you're using. With the rally, I use Weaken. But you get crit chance out of Death or Glory, 20%, and you get 15% out of rally. And when you're not using rally and pushing, and let's say you're using consecration, you swap here and you get 12% here, and then plus 15% here. You're basically capped without having to do anything. Well, basically with fanaticism, which is basically free, right? And then you will use Zealot's Covenant, which is really good. Increases our maximum fervor by 1, and it gives the Zealot ult a lot of damage. So what do these things do? First of all, Zealot makes our skills, when they crit, deal damage again. A lot of damage again. So it's very good. It's one of the best ults Paladin has. And also, like I mentioned at the start of the video, it gives the additional fortify when we cast our skills at maximum fervor. And this is just broken. And I can show you guys here the broken embattled. I'm spamming 35% maximum life. Life isn't dropping. Look at this. Also, I'm not too sure why our fortified gen is so high also. But something might be bugged with that too, with the embattled. But yeah, hey, it works. Anyways, moving on. Here on our amulet, we have our best aspect, redirected force, which is 180%. Well, in my case, 178%. Once we block, which we only have to block once every 10 seconds, is basically always up. It's 180%. It's better than all the other aspects, so that's why we go on the amulet, and that's why we try to get blocked, because it's the whole synergy goes, right? For the talisman set, we use the Sealed set, not to no surprise to anyone. And the Sealed set does a couple things. First of all, when we cast our skills, we get stacks. You can see them there, right? 25. And these stacks gives us crit damage and cast speed. Not bad. It's around like 70% more damage. And then when our stacks are maxed, we cast Rally for free. Now, we don't really care about this on the speed farm version, because we manually cast Rally. But when we're pushing, we use Consecration. We don't use Rally, right? Because Consecration just gives us more damage. And more healing, but all of that really doesn't matter. We have enough healing, but it gives us more damage. So we use Consecration. In that case, we do care about it automatically casting Rally, because some people ask, so how are we casting Rally? Well, because before I figured this out, which a viewer told me about, at first I didn't realize that Embattled was bugged. Sorry to go on a tangent. I just thought I was healing a lot, you know, but then I realized it wasn't 50% per second. It was, who knows how much it is, right? And that's when I realized I could, you know, manually cast Rally, and then they started making less sense, and people, you know, don't ask the question anymore, because this is straight up in the build now. Okay. But for the pushing version, since we don't use Rally, we don't cast Rally manually, this does cast it for free. So we still have points in it. We still get the benefits. Well, we get 1 stack of benefit, but that's it, right? And it gives us 30% DR. And then in the 5 set, we get even more damage. And when we have stacks and we move, you see these after images, they do damage. This is really good, because while we're clearing, let's say we're moving at the speed of light with Condemn and Rally going, and those after images are still doing damage while we move. And all in all, like, the build feels really mobile. Not only because, so Zeal you can only cast while standing still, but the animation is so short before you can move that it doesn't really feel like a stationary skill. You end up moving quite a lot while casting. And then for the unique charm, there's a couple things we can do. First of all, there's Gristle Opus, which is really good damage. No downside, just damage. Healing, again, we don't really care. Something that's important to know is that you might think that Gristle Opus is only 50% damage. It's not. If you read the second part, you have the crit strikes have a lucky hit chance to deal double damage. This is a lot better than it seems. The other option, which I don't really have, haven't dropped it yet, is called Mad Blood Idol. So Mad Blood Idol, what it does is when you take damage, it doubles that damage, but it gives the doubling part, it makes it makes you take it as burning damage, so it burns you, over 8 seconds. Because we have infinite healing, we really don't care about the burning damage, and it's basically free. And that gives 125% damage, so more than Griswold's. And also, it increases our movement speed, and this is movement speed beyond the cap, by 15%. Which means we can go from the 90% that we're moving at right now, which is pretty fast, to 300%, which is the absolute cap. That's great. And ideally, I would use Blood Mat Idol, but you can't really guarantee the drop. It's a general drop, right? And then Griswold Opus, the way you get it is by doing Astaroth. How do you do Astaroth? Either do Escalation 9 Sigils. Let me see if I have one. Yeah, one of these. Or what you do is you can do Belial and with your Greater Lyric keys here. And instead of and the boss you put is Astaroth, right? That's the other way you can get uniques from these bosses that are not that common. And then the third option is Endurance Faith. What Endurance Faith does is it makes you take damage. Instead of damage all at once, you take it over time. Now, because we have disgusting healing, on this build specifically, it's literally immortality. What would you use that for? Honestly, because I'm already so tanky, nothing except for maybe T12 Mephisto. Because T12 Mephisto can still one-shot you. So with Endurance Faith, you can basically just face roll the full fight, right? And that would be the use for it. I guess I'll cover the whole skills now. So first of all, there's Zeal, right? Zeal deals a lot of damage. Skill. These two, we don't need more Fortify. This is just more damage. More strikes is more damage. This, you alternate between these two. When you can weaken, so Consecration weakens, right? When you're using Consecration, it can weaken. We have 100% uptime. So then we can just get the free crit strike, which matches up because basically replaces the crit chance we're getting from Rally, from manually casting Rally when we're using Consecration. But when we're not using Consecration, we weaken. It just makes us take less damage. We can't really weaken in another way. I guess we can use Fanaticism, but it's not 100% uptime. It's close, right? But 5.5, you know, with 4, it's not entirely 100%. So we just take this. And then why are we taking Zealot's Legacy instead of Skull the Wicked? Because Skull the Wicked is actually more damage, and it's better because it makes it cleave larger, right? So the problem is that this is straight up bug. The 25% damage does nothing. It just doesn't work. So that's why we use Zealot's Legacy. Then there's Fanaticism. This gives a crit chance, attack speed, crit damage with this. It gives us this. It's obvious. It just makes it get one more stack. It goes from 4 stacks to 5. And then I'm not sure why I have more potency here. I might have misclicked. But this doesn't do anything anyways. But I guess we just take it because why not? I guess it might help with Lucion Crown. Not really, but yeah, these points just don't matter. I guess I could even take the point off. It's just I don't have anywhere to put the point right now. Then we have Defiance Aura, gives armor and resistance. It got buffed. When you press it, it makes us unstoppable. But because with Lucian Crown we're spamming, it doesn't matter. Also, because we don't actually want to take free cast with Fortress, which makes us our cast free while we're in it. Because of Lucian Crown, we take Unstoppable. And anyways, we wouldn't need this anyways, even if we weren't using it. So we take Unstoppable, and we're unstoppable from Fortress. So we don't really care about the active benefit of the Defiance Aura, which makes enemies unstoppable. Just the same as we don't really care about the active of Fanaticism that makes enemies weaken. We weaken either through, again, Zeal or Consecration. And why do I randomly have points of Consecration? Because I'm lazy. And what I usually do is, say this. And I put the point here. And when I'm bossing, when I'm going to boss, I just do boom, swap. And then I do, sorry, this is when I'm mapping. I'll explain in a second, but again, then when I'm mapping, I'm here. I just swap here. I put in my Consecration. I swap this here, and then I'm good to go, right? That's why I keep the points here, just because I'm lazy, right? And then this gives more damage when we gain Resolve. And because we use Fortress, Fortress grants 8 Resolve every 0.5 seconds. Basically, it means you Resolve while you're in it. It's always capped forever, right? And here's the 4% damage per Resolve stack. Incredible skill. I kind of hate the skill. It's clunky as shit, but it's so good you're forced to use it, right? And it's just too much damage. Hopefully, in the future, they'll buff Arbiter Justice again, and we can avoid using Fortress. But until then, we gotta use Fortress. So, and there's Rally. Again, we use the light version. Oh, when we're bossing, we can take it out because we're not using Rally. It doesn't matter. Just keep the point. Or I guess you can do the swap here instead of taking the point out here, right? That's technically, you know, more, it's technically more optimal, but it doesn't really change anything. And then we take the crit chance, which again stacks up to 3 with this Word of Sacrifice. And here, instead of getting 15% movement speed stack to up to 45, we get 20% up to 60%. And the unhindered, I guess it's nice. I don't really pay attention too much to it, but it basically lets you move past enemies. Then there's the thing I talked about earlier, Aegis or Condemn. So at the start, you're gonna have to use Aegis with Cooldown Reduction to keep the uptime up. With Stay Resolute, doesn't really matter much because you're using Fortress anyways, but you might as well get free resolve when you cast it too, and none of these do anything anyways. And then you increase the duration of Aegis by 4. There's a couple of reasons why, because for example, I was still using this even though I had enough cooldown to maintain it without this. Why would I want to use this instead of this? Well, the cast time on Aegis, let me show you real quick, is kind of long. It's a bit clunky to use, so you don't want to use it too often, right? Like that has an animation, right? It's not free. Like Rally basically has nothing. You just casted it, it has a 0 frame animation. But Aegis doesn't, so you want to cast it as the least often possible, right? You could make an argument for wanting block damage reduction. In my opinion, most things that kill you cannot be blocked, right? Block is basically all the little hits. And because we heal so much, the little hits don't do anything. And for that reason, just take duration, cast Aegis less often. It's less clunky, it's less annoying, it's overall better. And then Condemn. What do we do with Condemn? So with Condemn, there's a couple choices. First of all, we use Condemn once we can get rid of Aegis to get vulnerable, right? Because we have no other way. They nerfed the wolves. The wolves, the set rune used to give vulnerable, so we used to use that. But not anymore. We use Condemn. Condemn applies vulnerable. With this, the more enemies we hit, we'd reduce the cooldown. So basically, when we're mapping, it's 100% uptime. Even on bosses, it's 100% uptime. You can spam it off cooldown. And we're doing health. When doing health hits, you can just like spam it as you move. You'll clip a few enemies, and it'll just have it again. And then the other benefit, 30% movement speed. Again, this exceeds the movement speed cap. In theory, the only things that should exceed it are the things that say they have an X next to the name. For some reason, this has an X. It doesn't exceed the 200% movement speed cap. This doesn't have an X. It exceeds it. This doesn't have an X. It exceeds it. So who knows if this is bugged or this is wrong. All I know is this makes you move faster. And it's very apparent, obviously, as I showed you. Right? Look at the movement speed now. Look at it now. It's even faster. And now it's even faster. I'm at 290%. I'm almost at cap. If I had Blood Mad Idol, I would be at cap. This is why the build is so fast, right? With the after images going, you're clearing at the speed of light. It's great. And then Consecration. So Consecration is just a little better than Rally for bossing. Not too much so, but just a little better. You know, so we use, and it weakens permanently. So we, I mean, I guess, yeah, I mean, I guess, so this replaces the Rally's crit. So we basically just get this free, which is 7% damage. Nothing to write home about. It's just nice. Fortress, as I talked about. And that's basically it. So why don't we use, let's say, Falling Star? Well, initially I was using Falling Star for more mobility. But once I discovered the Rally Tech, it's so much faster to just walk than using Falling Star, which is, in my opinion, can be clunky. Sure, you can go through walls, but a lot of times you just end up slamming your face against the wall. And then it ends up being worse. You were better off just walking. Rally, just trust me, running at 300% movement speed is better than casting this. What's next? Next is the Paragon. On the Paragon board, we take Outmatch because we do physical damage. We take Preacher. It gives us more attack speed for its solid skills. And it gives us increased damage equal to 65% of our bonus attack speed. So I have heard rumors, reports, let's say, last season that this skills with attack speed beyond 100%. Now, I'm pretty sure my attack speed is not even at 100% yet. It's close, but not 100%. So it doesn't really matter for me at this point. But in theory, if people are correct, it goes attack speed beyond 100%, even though it's capped, works for this. Now, something I will say is that even if that's the case, you don't want to actively overcap your attack speed. It's not worth it. It doesn't scale enough to make it worth it over another stat on your gear. And here we put Resplendence. So this is the glyph we use to lower our Fortress, to lower our Condemn, lower, well, not our Rally, but our Consecration, right, and keep full uptime. And it buffs pretty good nodes, buffs life nodes, it buffs attack speed. It's a pretty good spot, pretty good glyph, right? And this board just has so much life, insane damage nodes, attack speed, rest. It's just a crazy ass board. The only downside is that for most builds, the legendary node is actually not that good, but because we actually take the attack speed into account, like we actually use the attack speed, it's quite good for us. And then we use relentless. So this actually makes it very important for you to move. Like you can't, let's say you're bossing, you can't just stand there and cast forever, right? Because this will drop off. This will have many implications. First of all, if you show you, well, let me do this again. The other, oh, actually it's the right one. It's a 16 second cooldown, and let me reset it real quick. But if instead I'm moving and I cast it, instead of a 16-second cooldown, it's gonna be 8 seconds. Well, 9, right? So it's very important to keep moving. Like obviously you're not a metronome. You can't time 2 seconds. So just you know, attack, move a little bit, attack, click, you know, just keep moving every now and then to keep this active for the damage and for the cooldown, right? It's very important for both. And here we put a spirit glyph because it has a lot of willpower around it. This is just cooldown, which is very nice to cap our cooldown for Fortress and for Lucion Crown. Then we take Castle node, just a really high damage node with good nodes. And usually, so almost every single build takes this node, this board, and they're kind of fucked because they don't do physical damage except for Clash and Shield of Retribution. But we do physical damage, so we even take account, we even benefit from the great nodes that it has, right? And here's where we get our only block chance in the board comes from here, from Stalwart and the 2 nodes. And here we put Fervorous. When I get more points, I'm gonna unlock here, right? But for now, grab these nodes. Fervorous is our best glyph. Oh, actually, I think Spirit, if I'm not mistaken, is higher percent. Let's check. Yeah, Spirit is a bit better since we're crit capped. But Fervorous is the second best glyph. And then I guess Resplendence is also very good. It's buffing life and attack speed. And then Outmatch is also good, but not as good as all those others. But Outmatch is buffing really good nodes. Because this is, well, this is just a normal node. But this is elite damage, which rolls higher than other types of damage. If it was crit, it would be even better. But, you know, still good. Pretty good to buff that node. And then lastly, there's Fervent. So on Fervent, we put Chip. Fervent, it's really nice because we have 4 solid stacks. And so this is, what is it? 140% critical damage and 12% crit chance. So very nice. And then another thing that's important to note is that there's an aspect called Jack's Fervor. You might read this aspect and think, wow, that's insane. That's 20% times 4, 80% damage. That's better than the 60% damage or the 70% utmost glory you're using. Are you not using Jack's Fervor? So the problem is that Jack's Fervor is bugged, or well, might be intended. But essentially, Jack's Fervor adds up to this node, right? This node with Jack's Fervor says 55%. It's not a multiplier. It's additive to Fervent node. That makes it worse than 80%, right? And that's why we're using, that's why we're not using Jack's Fervor. And that's it for the board. Oh yeah, well, I guess I'll mention again. The reason why we're not using Shield Bearer, again, is because our interdiction aspect does not take it, the Shield Bearer does not take into account the interdiction aspect, which kind of fucks the whole thing. Then next, what is next? For Mercenaries. There's many Mercenaries you can use. Rahir gives you a lot of damage from Inspiration node, which gives you damage when enemies are affected by Ground Slam, which is this skill, and also by Bastion. And then it also gives you resistances, which is nice DR. The healing here doesn't really matter. And this part also gives you DR. So Rahir makes you tankier. Then Alkin also makes you tankier with Field of Languish, which is nice. And there's really not many good options for the reinforcement anyways, so might as well be a bit tankier. So another option you can use Beriana. Sorry, not Beriana. Yeah, you can use Beriana at the start when your movement speed is low. Let's say your boots kind of suck and they don't have a lot of movement speed. You can use Beriana because Beriana gives you movement speed on kill, like a stacking buff. It goes up to, I don't know if it's 20 or 30%. And that helps you cap movement speed. And movement speed is just such a valuable skill. It makes you so much more efficient to walk fast, place to place, right? And another option is you can take Subo. Subo gives you good damage. Not as, I think it's on average less damage than Rahir actually, but it gives you map hacks, right? You can see where all the monsters are on the screen. I don't really need that, but if you want it, you know, you can use a Subo and get the pseudo map hats. And then for runes, because I forgot to mention them, it's Igni mod is what you use, which gives you 25% damage reduction, I think it is. And there's another option would be to use Q rune, if I can find it. Q rune, which gives you bulwark, but it kind of doesn't make sense in this build. Sure, it can make you a little tankier if a boss happens or the monster happens to hit you while you have your berry up. But in practice, Q is strong on other classes because it doubles up as a source of more tankiness, a bigger life pool, but also it doubles up as a source of healing, right? Because you're refreshing your barrier and it's essentially like healing, right? That's what makes Bulwark so good. But in this build that has infinite healing, we rather take Mod, which is more damage reduction, to essentially make our healing more effective, right? And then for the second option, I usually use Siren Cry to pull in monsters or when I cast skills, right? Because sure, the area of effect of Zeal is not small, but it's not huge, right? So by pulling in mobs, it just makes the gameplay more fluid. Sure, Condemn also pulls mobs, but it takes a while, right? See, it's not instant. For that reason, Cry is really nice. Another option you can use, I'm still trying to figure it out. What should I include for bossing? So they changed this Yom rune. Now it gives crit damage. Question is how much? Because usually these runes are nerfed, right? They're not the base value that you get on the skill on the class, right? So how much is Yom? Who knows? The other option would be Ohm, right? 7.5% damage. It's not too much. Another option would be Bex. But Bex is nerfed. You need 900 offering to keep it up. You just can't keep it up. It's quite bad. So what's the option on bosses? I'm not too sure yet. It might just be Ohm, and you say fuck it and use Ohm. It could be Lack, be tankier. I don't know if it even works on a lot of the things that boss casts, but it could be Lack. I'm still trying to figure out the second rune slot when we're not using Cry, because obviously on bosses, Cry doesn't matter, right? When I find out, I'll update the guide, right? But until then, it's I'm not sure, not too sure. Maybe it's Eom, and then that lets me bypass the fanaticism bug. I'll test it out. Just an idea I just thought of right now. Yeah, and then on gems, we obviously use golds on the two-hander since we do physical damage. We use we use rubies on the helmet because, well, strength. And then instead of using 3 diamonds or whatever, we use a ruby, topaz, and a diamond. Why? Well, the most dangerous damage types by far are fire damage and lightning damage. And then usually the next hardest one is poison, but because we heal so much, poison doesn't affect that much. That's why we use a diamond. And that's basically it for the guide. If I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a lot. If you have any questions, I stream and I have my Discord. And so I'll leave the links in the description below. You can also read the full guide in the description below. And well, if you like it, so leave a like, maybe sub. And I hope to see you guys next time.